What are you inspired by when it comes to work? I think that, as every artist, I'm inspired by various things. Actually, even yesterday, what we were talking about was that artists and every one of us who goes about art, this what he or she shows and presents, as the yesterday's conversation was on presentation, so everyone kind of draws on their own experience. I think that the experience is also very often what one colloquially calls inspiration for action, inspiration for painting. Well, we're working here in the company of beautiful nature. That's already the third time I've been here, and during my first stay here a great number of photos were taken, which I later turned into my artworks and into collages. I was doing it already in the open air, but then, sort of inspired by these photographs, by nature, I created some artworks which have been evolving. And that's how it is in my case. I believe that many other artists are inspired by various things too. As far as I'm concerned, there was a moment in my artistic life when I was inspired by early Renaissance art. There was also a time during my art working while I was being inspired by modern art, the art of Albers, Kuberhorn. I'm also inspired by various things. I've already said not only me, but a lot of artists in general very often draw upon this what they can see, what they can hear, what they can watch, and what they can read, and their experience in general. What factors determine the beginning of your working process, the moment when you feel that's the right time to create something? Generally, I'm a bit busy. I work at college, so there are many different organizational activities connected with the work. I don't work systematically, but there are some artists who work very systematically. Their day, week, month is well organized. At a certain time they go to their studio, they work, then they do some other things. Meanwhile, I persistently have to seek for some free time by myself. Unfortunately, that's the way I have to do this. My studio is located at my home, so it seems to be comfortable. On the one hand it is, but on the other there are still both advantages and disadvantages. When I work at home I can, for example, paint the pane, do something with the painting, and in the meantime, while the paint is becoming dry, I can go downstairs and stir the soup. So these are the advantages. However, having a studio located outside the house results in being a little more organized. And that arises from the fact that everything needs to be planned, arranged for the whole day. One has to know how much time it takes to arrive at the place and to come back. So working outside the house is sometimes beneficial. Anyway, I usually find some free time on my own, but there are some moments when I just have to start working. As I've got an idea, I often feel the need of fulfilling the idea, but there are also some moments when just commitments made in the past get me going. And this is how the artist's life goes on. You never know when the right moment comes, do you? Inspiration, it's a kind of whiff. Anyway, if you ask me, I can feel anything like inspiration. It's just like that. We artists, and I think the phenomenon is present not only in fine arts, we are more sentile, more aware of visual impressions. We can probably see more than Joe Public. Maybe it results from a talent, but quite often it's the effect of the physical structure of the human eye, which is a predisposing factor. That's why some people perceive images in a certain way. Musicians listen to and are inspired by various sounds, nature and creations of other artists. In fine arts, it is like feeling the need to create, and working is of high importance. Besides, saying that I don't work systematically might be misunderstood, because what I'm telling is that some of the painters keep the regular rhythm, others just work. I, then, extremely devote myself to this, what I'm doing. I postpone all the other things. And, truly speaking, I don't leave my studio. I go to bed, I'm thinking about the paintings. I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about my paintings. I'm thinking about what has happened there. If it comes to putting the paint, painting the paint or an element of the painting, it may look completely different after drying up. So in fact, while I'm setting up a project, I'm eminently concentrated on it. What kind of techniques do you use? Are they difficult to learn? No, it's not. Actually, it's nothing new or revolutionary. It's just a collage. As you know, collage is a work of art that is made by attaching pieces of different elements, sometimes painted and sometimes, like in my case, it is an art fabric. I use also traditional techniques, like a traditional paintbrush or paints. During my studies I used to work with oil paints, but today I use mostly acrylic paints, watercolors in other words. I use them because they simply dry up faster and I can foresee what I'm about to create. Of course, it requires some experience because every color dries up differently, looks differently when dried up or still wet. That's why one should have the experience to know what to do and not act completely unconsciously. However, a lot of artists have worked not knowing what the effect of their creation would be. I like this type of technique because each time it's like creating different layers of the painting. I use art fabric, transparent art fabric, paper, transparent paper, and actually I never know what the painting would finally look like. That's why it's so fascinating. So even a student from ZSRG Rataje can learn how to make a collage? Of course. And coming back to your studies, where did you get the idea of artistic studying? I guess I've always known that I want to paint. This results also from the fact that in my environment there were some people, maybe not artists or art students, but there were several persons in my family somehow connected with art. My aunt, my mom, who was able to draw beautifully despite not graduating from any art high schools or schools of fine arts. My first moments with art are connected with my aunt, cousin, with my family environment, so maybe the idea of artistic studies appeared then, or maybe it was the time when my predisposition to art was noted. Of course, after that I attended primary school, attended some art classes, and I knew I wanted to attend art high school. That was the only thing I knew, being between 12 and 13 years old. Then naturally, artistic studies. In our project, we're trying to look for relations between art and living nature. In your artistic creation, do you refer to nature? And what techniques enable you to achieve that desired effect? Nature has always been very important for me, and at that moment, my paintings might be classified as geometric art, geometric abstractions. I've started to use the language of geometry in my artworks. But nature was, and still is, the element which I can always come back to, look at and analyze its color and chiaroscuro relations. For a painter, light and shadow are most important. If there is no light, there is no color. If there is light, there is shadow. If there are both light and shadow, then color in the light and in the shadow look completely different. That's always my starting point. Even now, I'm looking there and behind the window there is green grass in the daylight. In the shadow I can see these various color temperatures. Actually, every time the intensive color is different, and during creating my paintings or collages, which I don't call collages because in my opinion they are just paintings, as I use color, so it's always the element I come back to. It is also very helpful at the moment of doubt. I can look around and realize that this greenery has to look as it looks, or that between them there is the specific tension. Yes, in this way, in fact, I'm also inspired by nature. As I said before, when I was here, I took a lot of photos in the open air, and those were photos of nature, a road, a tree, some elements which I then used in my artworks. In what manner can art interpret the surrounding reality? Probably thanks to the light, I think so. But for some time a circle has appeared in my paintings. This geometric figure has prepossessed me as far as my artworks are concerned. I try to compose circles on the pane in a different form. I look for some relations between these forms. Circle presence in nature is so rich, and basically all the geometric forms derive directly from the nature. We look at the sun. There is also a full moon right now. We go to the forest, and what we can see are mushrooms, circles. There are so simple comparisons to nature, but they deny the first thought that nature is nature, geometry is geometry. You see, in fact, this is all strongly connected with each other. In your opinion, how can both art in general and personal creation develop and shape a high school student? I'm an academic teacher. Since graduating, I've been working with youths. I like this job very much, and I hope that my personal artistic creation could somehow influence, develop imagination, develop sensitivity. I think it's very important, and as my paintings are being created as college, they might be inspiring for young people just because of that. Thanks to colleges, one can excite their imagination and try to create a composition themselves. So I really hope my paintings could be an inspiration for anyone. I have to agree with you, because I would never say that using geometry one can show nature in such an impressive manner. You took me by surprise, really. I think people who deal with biology know for sure that there are a lot of perfect figures in nature. For instance, snowflakes, which are perfectly divided, crystal, which is built of figures that in turn create a block, etc., etc. In nature, there is a lot of conformations like these, where we can find perfect geometric figures. We only need to know where to look for them. What is your opinion about international projects such as Comenius, in which students get to know creation of artists from other countries? In what way can it be helpful in shaping modern Europe? I think that's a very interesting project and also very interesting initiative, so illuminating and didactic. As the saying goes, travel broadens the mind, cause, if I'm right, this project is associated also with mutual travels. Learning about different cultures, learning various landscapes, learning other habits, learning other architecture, that's interesting. Often two different regions, not necessarily distant from each other, are distinguished by different elements in culture, history, and of course in architecture and art. So, like I've already said at the beginning, I believe that everything what human beings experience shape them at a later time. And it's not only about an artist. We are gathering this experience every day, and we are changing. Maybe it's not visible at the first sight. However, the truth is, this whole experience shapes our personality. That's why I think this project is so very interesting. I suppose that you and your friends as well will take advantage of those mutual experience, the exchange of experiences and habits. Thank you very much for the interesting interview. Thank you.